Hi everyone, the Greek Goddess of Great Reading here. Today I am reviewing the final book in James Dashner's The Maze Runner series, The Kill Order. They thought the end came in a flash. Before Wicked was formed, before the Glade was built, before Thomas entered the maze, sun flares hit the earth, killing most of the population. The worst is yet to come. Mark and Trina were there when it happened. They survived. But now a virus is spreading. A virus that fills humans with murderous rage. There is no cure, no escape. They're convinced that there's a way to save those who are left, if they can stay alive. Because in this new devastated world, every life has a price, and to some, you're worth more dead than alive. The end is only the beginning. Finally, I finished the Maze Runner series. This final book, The Kill Order, is not so much based on the story of Thomas and the Gladers and all of that surrounding Wicked. It is 13 years prior. We do see some sort of flashbacks, though I wouldn't call them flashbacks in this sense because it goes to Teresa's point of view in Wicked at some points, sort of looking at her and right before Thomas enters the maze and how she feels regarding that situation. But then it backtracks to 13 years before when the virus known as the flare is actually released. So we meet Mark and his group of friends, which include Trina, who was his friend for a very long time, as well as Alec and Lana, who are seasoned soldiers, and some other characters, Darnell, Toad, Misty, and they are all sort of living in a settlement up in the mountains because the sun flares hit where they were. I believe they were in New York City, and the safest places now in the United States are highly elevated areas, so they are living in a settlement in the mountains. This is a year after the sun flares have hit, so things seem okay. Everything's kind of calmed down since the sun flares happened, but now all of a sudden these people in green suits drop from a berg in the sky and release and start shooting darts at them, and then a virus spreads and people start reacting very badly to it. Some die very quickly, but as the virus keeps spreading, the virus is mutating and worse symptoms keep occurring, like the murderous rage that occurs and what in the previous Maze Runner series we were known to distinguish cranks. So the people who had far gone, who had the flare and who were developing cognitive symptoms of sort of cannibalistic behavior and just have lost all sense of humanity. I liked the book, but I don't know. It's just because you were so used to Thomas and the Gladers and their story, and then suddenly 13 years prior, some people would find that very interesting prequel stories, origin stories sort of, because this book is an origin story for one of the characters in the 13 years later when they are going through the maze. So you don't know who it is until the very, very end of the book, and I'm not going to tell you who it is, but that was very interesting when I finally figured it out. But you don't know any of these people, and there's not enough time for you to get to know them in this book because things are happening so quickly. And that is just how the action is progressing. The virus spreads really quickly. You barely got introduced to these characters before the virus was thrown at them. You do kind of get some backstory and some personal character development from the characters, like Mark especially. Mark's backstory is shown to us through the dream sequences he has. So whenever Mark falls asleep, he has a dream, and he's usually having a nightmare about the day the flares happen. So by reading about his dream sequences, we do find out exactly what happened to him and Trina and how they met Alec and Lana and the rest of the group and how they survived the sun flares and the traumatic experience that came about from all of that. Mark and Trina and Alec and the rest of the group come across this village that was also sort of slaughtered by the virus, but they discover one girl who's still there, and she hasn't been affected, though she was actually pierced by a dart. So they assume that she's immune to the flare, and Of course, they're not calling it the flare yet, but they assume she's immune. So they know that they are progressively getting sicker. And you can tell through multiple actions that occur over the course of the book that Mark is slowly becoming a little off, and Alec is losing his cognitive abilities to function as a human being who is not intent on killing everything. Even Trina is starting to get sick, and you see that through her closed off looks, and she doesn't remember who anyone is, and she's just starting to sort of act very off. But even though this is all happening to them, they still realize that this young girl is immune, and they need to get her to the Post-Flares Coalition. They're the ones who released, I believe. Well, no, they aren't the ones who released the virus. They were told by someone else, and we all know who that is. They were told by someone else to release the virus into the communities. It's so sadistic. I can't believe someone would do that. But government. They are trying very hard to get this young girl, her name is Dee Dee, to safety, to somewhere where she can be utilized to perhaps create a cure. That is their purpose, and they want to be successful at it, even though they are slowly losing their minds. So if you do like prequels and origin stories, it is a good book in that sense. It's just, you're so attached to the characters that you've already read about for 3 books that I kind of wish I had read that book first. But once you figure out whose origin story it is, it's probably a good idea to read it last instead of reading it first in this series, and that's most likely, definitely, why James Dashner wrote it that way. So pick up The Kill Order by James Dashner at a bookstore near you. I look forward to seeing you guys next time, and until then, keep reading.